Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the second Sugess that we got in not too long ago, and that is the GMT. All in all, this is not as controversial as the Daytona homage that I reviewed previously. Put a link in the corner of the screen, in case you want to see that video, but it still falls in the Submariner homage category, and this particular one is a great example of how consistent Sugess are in their quality. This is in the same price bracket as the equivalent from San Martin and Kronos. It features the same high beat GMT movement, and it also shares the same Pepsi ceramic bezel insert. I haven't had those ones in to compare, but so far this is making the right noises. I personally love GMTs. I just love having that additional time zone there, even though I never use it. I just like to know it's there, and I just love having that added useless functionality. I don't think whoever spends 15K on an Explorer 2 doesn't actually buy it so they can track a second time zone. Before going forward, I just want to mention that this, just like the previous Sugess, has been sent in to me by the Aliexpress platform for the purpose of this review. I don't have to send it back, I get to keep it. You can find links down below to the Aliexpress store and this watch, and also a coupon code that will get you $20 off every $200 spent. Now that that's out of the way, let's take a look at the Sugess GMT. In my opinion, it is very hard to justify the value of a GMT Master 2 homage from AliExpress, especially when the movement inside doesn't take most of the price. So as I keep saying with all of these, they have to make up for the difference somehow. Just like the San Martin and Kronos, this also has a ceramic Pepsi bezel insert, which apparently costs a fair amount of money to produce, and that's adding to the overall cost, and this seems to be the case with all brands that use this bezel insert. More on the bezel insert later. Let's get some dimensions out of the way. The case diameter is 40 millimeters. We have a thickness of 13.4 millimeters, a lug to lug of 48. We also have male end length, so an overall lug to lug of 52, which is long enough, but the lugs point downwards, so it still wears pretty decent even on my 6.3 inch wrist. The weight is 142 grams, size up for my wrist. The case is pretty well finished. Again, high polish finish on the sides and very fine brushing on top of the lugs. Just like the previous one reviewed, this is a very well finished watch. Tolerances are also very good, and there are no sharp edges anywhere that could indicate poor QC inconsistencies. At the 3, we have the screw down crown with the S logo, and just like the previous one, this has also a rubber gasket that aids with the water resistance. Between this and the screw down case back, this has a stated water resistance of 200 meters. The bezel is 24 clicks, bi-directional with a Pepsi ceramic insert. There are 2 more bezel options available, a full black and also a Batman variant. Plenty of grip and decent enough resistance. A few things to outline here. There is no loom on the insert, which sort of makes the tracking of the second time zone in the dark a bit more difficult. The clicks are not actually clicks, or if they are, I can't hear them. And when turning this, it needs some adjustment, very little doubt to fall in place. The thing is that I think this was done deliberately, so it's just the way they chose to do them. I saw another review and the so-called clicks were also muted. It's still okay, but the fact that this still needs a tiny bit of adjustment to align it properly is just the thing that could have been improved, in my opinion. The entire process feels natural enough, but also just something to keep in mind. Also, the Pepsi ceramic insert, which looks more like a vintage Pepsi bezel. This looks more like a vintage red rather than a proper red. I'm not sure if they didn't perfect the process or that's just how they wanted to go with it. In the picture, it looks more like a proper red, but there's nothing wrong with this in my opinion. I think it's just a matter of preference. Let's talk about the dial. The dial is covered by a flat piece of sapphire crystal. Again, I couldn't find any information about the air coating, but you still have decent legibility in awkward angles. Also at the 3 we have the Cyclops, which does a good job with magnifying the date window, so I can't actually complain. But I can also see some blue AR on the Cyclops, so I presume there is some on the crystal also. The dial layout doesn't need much introduction here, since it's probably one of the most famous dial layouts there is. Everything is very well executed and well finished, just like the Daytona homage that I reviewed. Something really cool that I've only seen on my previous Heimdaller that I reviewed a while back is the engraving on the rehaut. Not sure how difficult this is to do, but I do think this is kind of cool, and it's just adding to the whole classy touch, and it's just something to note. A couple of things to touch on here before moving on. The first would be the font. The font on the logo is the same font as they used in the previous watch. At the end of the day, I can get past that, but they decided to use a different font at the 6, which is conflicting a bit with the regular font. And speaking of the font at the 6, Diver's 200 meter part, that part doesn't really sit right with me. This is not a certified diver to my knowledge, and some people might be put off by that. And for some reason, the Pepsi version has GMT written, and the other 2 versions have Seaman. So the Black and the Batman version have Seaman. Not sure why they decided to do that. This is technically the same watch, but only different bezel options. All in all, these are small things which you can get over and live without, but it could certainly do with the Diver's part in my opinion. And I think it's just a matter of branding consistency. The lume is pretty decent. We have this minty icy blue, which funny enough doesn't shine super bright, but it does last much longer than expected. You could easily tell the time at 4 o'clock in the morning when you go for that toilet trip, between you and me. I can't really criticize it much because it's more than sufficient for what you need it for, and I'd rather have longer lasting lume and not so bright rather than the other way around. The movement powering this is the Hangzhou HZ6460, which is essentially an ETA 2836-2 clone, but is slightly modified because the ETA has a day complication that Hangzhou has removed and added GMT function. This is a 25 joule high beat, 28,800 beats per hour movement that hacks and hand winds with around 42 hours of power reserved. This is used in a few watches on Aliexpress, and I believe it's a decent option for the price. I have this in my GMT Mercure and Mercure GMT, and so far I haven't had any issues with it. It runs okay. Also, as it is the case with these clones, the parts are interchangeable between this and the ETA. And in case something goes wrong, you have a higher chance of finding someone that is able to fix it. They'll be familiar with the movement. The price of these is around $120, so it's also reflected in the overall price of the watch a little bit. I also managed to get plus 12 seconds per day accuracy, but it's not the best, but it will do. Let's talk about the bracelet now. This is pretty much identical to the one reviewed previously, so I take it they use this in their Rolex homages. We have the same 3-link oyster style with screw pins to adjust, very easy to size, polished through the middle and also polished on the sides. We have the same safety latch with the S logo that adds that additional touch of class in my opinion. And just like the other bracelet, this also has the same great tolerances where it fits beautifully in the case with no no wiggle. One thing that I will say is that when I first took this out of the box, one of the male end links wasn't fully articulated with the rest of the bracelet, but I think there was some piece of plastic from the wrapping that was interfering with that. Again, it regained mobility quite quickly after having it on my wrist for a couple of days, so it's not the end of the world. To draw the line here, guys, I think at the end of the day, the main competition for this are the other 2 watches, San Martin and Chronos, the equivalent GMTs. I haven't had the other 2 to compare, but I think at this stage, it's just a matter of preference because the consistency alone shows that this is more than capable of competing with the other ones, and it has its own character that gently separates it from the other 2, but also at the same time, enough in common to be able to ride at the same level. Guys, that was my review for the Sugess GMT. Let me know in the comment section below what do you think about the watch. Let me know if you buy it or not, or if you choose the other two options. Thank you very much for watching, for sticking through the end of the video. Click a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't so, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Or something like that.